Hello and welcome to my Scholars Day presentation for Scholars Day 2021. I will be doing my presentation on my thesis from May of 2020 for my Educational Psychology Master's degree. The title of my thesis is Can Intentional Instruction Influence Self-Efficacy and Increase Academic Performance? A Pygmalion Effect in Spanish Language Learners. My name is Kasey and I conducted this research at Texas A&M University in Central Texas. Introduction. There has been a lot of growing efforts of research that examines the factors that are actually influencing student academic performance. One of which student beliefs, personal beliefs of their own personal academic ability, such as their self-efficacy and their self-concept, as well as others' beliefs of the student's academic ability, such as their teacher expectations or teacher-student perceptions. Both of these directly influence academic performance. Social contexts have also been found to influence learning, such as different instructional methods. So then my question is, could manipulation of such social contexts actually improve academic performance through enhanced self-concept, self-efficacy, self-beliefs? Prior research on self-beliefs, self-fulfilling prophecy, defines the self-fulfilling prophecy as a false belief that leads to its own fulfillment. There are studies that support this, such as a study that examined the expectations of beliefs and expectations on the aging experience for elderly individuals, showed that individuals' expected aging experience positively and negatively related to their actual aging experience. So if they had positive expectations about the aging experience, they experienced positive experiences with the aging experience, vice versa for negative. Another study showed that teacher initial expectations of students' performances predicted the student's final self-concept at the end of the school year. So then my suggestion or question would be, could then intentional expectations serve as a self-fulfilling prophecy, thus improving student academic performance? Target is to show a Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect is defined as teacher expectations that have self-fulfilling effects on student academic performance. This is known as the Pygmalion effect. Some studies that support research that supports the Pygmalion effect are research on employee performance found that employee self-efficacy actually mediated a positive relationship between supervisor managerial expectations and actual employee performance. A second study found that teacher expectations positively related to students' performance at the end of the year in the subject math. So then from that we gather, well, teacher expectations could then intentionally be modified and implemented to have a positive self-fulfilling effect on students' academic performance, thus creating a Pygmalion effect in the classroom. The mediator in this study would be self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is defined as a person's belief in his or her own ability to perform task-specific behaviors. Some studies that support self-efficacy and their ability to do and self-efficacy was found to be positively related to academic performance as well as academic persistence in several studies. Then also performance self-efficacy as well as academic self-efficacy were two of the strongest predictors of student GPA in several studies. And then manipulation of students' beliefs of their future opportunities for success in a school district actually indicated that as the students' self-efficacy increased, their academic performance increased as well. So then from this, I suggest intentional instruction methods that focus on enhancing student academic self-efficacy may actually improve student academic performance. The present research aimed to examine students' prior knowledge, their current knowledge, and their current foreign language self-efficacy at time 1 semester, at the beginning of the semester. We plan to implement intentional positive teacher expectations and affirmations to improve student self-efficacy in the foreign language learning class. We recorded first, second, and third 6 weeks average course grades, which is their first, second, and third report cards of the year. And then we seek to examine student current knowledge, their current foreign language self-efficacy, and the student perceptions of classroom instructions at the end of the semester. So the student's perception of whether classroom instruction had a positive feedback feel, or whether it had a negative feedback, or whether they didn't feel any feedback from the instruction. The aim was to investigate the relationship between the positive teacher expectations, the student's self-efficacy, and overall learning performance for these foreign language learners. The conditions for the current research study, we used high school students in a Texas rural high school that were enrolled in one of 6 different, well, they were the same course, but 6 different sections of beginner Spanish 1 courses. We used a coin cost method to divide these 2 groups in experimental versus non-experimental conditions. The experimental condition ended up having a total of 28 participants. The non-experimental condition ended up having a total of 39 participants. In our experimental condition, students received intentional positive expectations from their teacher, including 2 of the prompts listed here, such as each of you have shown to be capable of learning Spanish, or I do not doubt that each of you will do well on this assignment. The non-experimental condition did not receive any extra positive feedback or implemented instruction feedback. So the people in the students in the non-experimental condition only received regular instruction, no additional positive instructor expectations at all. The scales and assessments that we used in this research study, here are the following. Some were completed at time 1, some were completed at time 2, and some were completed both. So at time 1, we obtained parental consent and student assent, as all of the participants were minors. We conducted a demographic survey on the existing knowledge of Spanish language, so what they knew, if they knew any about Spanish prior to the onset of the study, and that was only taken at time 1. We also took beginner Spanish knowledge assessment, which only assessed their basic Spanish knowledge as of this time, and we did that at time 1 and time 2. We also did a foreign language self-efficacy scale, which had 24 items, and we conducted this both at time 1 and 2 to assess students' self-efficacy related to foreign language learning. Then at time 2, we also analyzed or received students' perceptions of classroom instruction only at time 2 to see if the students perceived classroom instruction to have a positive feedback, or if they felt a negative feedback, or if they felt none. Academic performance in Spanish language learning was measured using the first, second, and third 6 weeks grades, which was their report card, as well as the beginning and ending scores on the beginner Spanish knowledge assessment, which was the 10-item assessment that we conducted at time 1 and at time 2. So the expected results, what we hoped to find was evidence of a positive relationship existing between intentional teacher expectations and students' actual academic performance. The teacher expectations were expected to mediate the relationship between foreign language self-efficacy and foreign language academic performance, which would have supported the Pygmalion effect. What we found using an alpha level of 0.05 for all of our statistical analyses, an independent samples t-test was ran between the students' prior experience with Spanish language learning at time 1, and it did not differ between the 2 instructional groups, experimental and non. The beginning Spanish knowledge assessment at time 1, the Spanish knowledge assessment in the positive feedback, my experimental group, actually had a higher Spanish knowledge overall. They generally knew more about Spanish than the regular instruction group. So our foreign language self-efficacy at time 1 did not differ between instructional groups. They were on the same path. An alpha level of 0.05 was used for our bivariate correlations, and you can see those here, none of which were statistically significant, or some of which were statistically significant, not all of which that we had hoped for. I'm sorry. You can see that here. Okay, the 6 weeks average, semester grades averages between the two groups did not differ between the 6 weeks time periods first, second, and third. A one-way analysis of variance was conducted at time one. At time one, the beginner Spanish knowledge assessment was used as our covariate, and then our feedback condition, positive regular relationship at time two for the beginner Spanish knowledge assessment was our dependent variable, and this ANOVA was found to be non-significant. In addition to that, our foreign language self-efficacy scale, we conducted a 2x2 mixed model ANOVA. There were no outliers. The skewness here is listed at -0.6, and regular instruction exceeded to 0.80. There was a violation of normality for the regular instruction group. This was exploratory, but our QQ plots did indicate a violation of normality. There were equal variances across both groups, and here you can see those numbers for time one foreign language self-efficacy scale and time two foreign language self-efficacy scale. Continuing, the foreign language self-efficacy scale, we also did multivariate tests on. Time was actually found statistically significant with a p-value of less than 0.001. The mean of the foreign language self-efficacy score was 20.09. This was significantly lower than the mean of the foreign language self-efficacy score at time two, which was 39.71. The between subject effect for the feedback condition was not significant with a p-value of 0.49. And then contrary to our expectations, the interaction between time and feedback was not statistically significant, but it was almost statistically significant with a p-value of 0.07, which indicates that a larger sample with a larger power value would probably or could possibly give us a statistically significant p-value running this test in an additional follow-up study. So to discuss, we did have unequal sample sizes. It was impossible to randomly assign courses, so what we had to do was randomly assign the course sections to our groups, which left us with 28 in the experimental condition and only 39 in our non-experimental condition. Very uneven. There was some attrition to be accounted for. There was also a ceiling effect with the beginner Spanish knowledge assessment because everyone in both conditions scored over a 94 on that assessment. Also, there is a little bit of inflation with the course averages as everyone in the course had a very high average. Almost all people in the course had an A, with very, very few students having lower than an A in the course. Our foreign language self-efficacy scale probably needs to be improved, or maybe we need to find a better scale to use to evaluate foreign language self-efficacy scale in an instructional setting, because the instructional intervention that we used with just positive feedback and positive statements from the instructor, I think may have been ineffective, and possibly a better instructional intervention could produce a stronger effect on students' academic performance and increasing their self-efficacy in a future study. Examining the group differences, if we had a larger sample size, we would need a minimum of 60 students per group in both experimental and non-experimental, which would increase our power to 0.80, and our present study power was only 0.52. So to conclude, further research is needed to examine the impact of intentional self-efficacy instructional intervention in such educational contexts. We do need to improve the implementation of intentional instructional interventions that focuses on student experiences, their personal experiences inside the classroom with learning a foreign language, their self-efficacy, their self-concept, all of which could be affecting their academic performance, as well as we need to discover another study or even maybe make up one of our own, a better instructional intervention. We need to find out which instructional intervention is best for improving self-efficacy and use that one in future studies. So here's a list of my references that I used to make this presentation, as well as some that were in my research study. And I appreciate all of you watching and taking time to listen to my presentation on my thesis. It was very exciting to do this research study, and I hope to replicate it again in the future using a larger sample size. If you have any questions about this research or would like to further discuss anything, please contact me. I've listed my email there, or my thesis advisor, Dr. Schwagler, and I've listed her email there. Thank you guys so much. You've been a great audience.
Hello, everyone. My name is William Goodridge, and today I'd like to show you a presentation on the research that I performed alongside Dr. Laura Weiser-Irwinson on public perceptions of COVID-19. So just the topics I'll be hitting on in this presentation, I'd first just like to give a brief background on what COVID-19 is, and then lead on to the material and methods of my research, what I got from my research, and any implications for my results. All right, so the COVID-19 pandemic is caused by an RNA virus known as SARS-CoV-2, which is part of a larger viral subgroup of viruses known as coronaviruses, which we've seen in the past in the 2000s with viruses such as SARS-CoV-1 and MERS. It has a transmission rate estimated between 2 and 3 that varies a lot since it's such a new virus and we're still learning how it works. Some estimates give it as low as 1 and as high as 4. And all that R naught value is just estimating if you have one case, how many potential new cases will rise from its spread. So it likely spreads through droplet transmission. Short-term symptoms range from minor flu-like symptoms to severe lower respiratory tract infections and even death, with long-term symptoms including loss of smell and taste, joint pain, chest pain, and in some cases, there's inflammation of the heart muscles and lung abnormalities. And individuals that are 65 years of age and older and those with comorbidities are most at risk of developing these severe symptoms. So it was initially reported by the World Health Organization on the very last day of 2019, which gives it its name, COVID-19. So what I wanted to get from my research is I wanted to look at different opinions and perception on COVID-19. I asked questions such as how serious they thought the pandemic was, how important the safety protocols given to us are, what information sources they used and the validity of those sources. And the last topic I touched on in the survey was access to COVID-19 testing. So the survey. I used Qualtrics survey engine, and I ended up having 128 participants that included students, faculty, and staff of Texas A&M University Central Texas. We did this by a recruitment email sent out to everyone and anyone 18 years of age or older to participate. And also, this survey was approved by the TMUCT Institutional Board of Research. So the main demographic results from what I got was that our participants ranged in age from 18 to 72 with a median of 37. I asked their annual household income, and around 30% said they made less than $40,000, with roughly a quarter saying they made more than $100,000. Since we did this, our participants were a part of our institution of higher education. It makes sense that around half held at least 2-year degrees and the other half had at least 4-year degrees or higher. So when asked about how comfortable they were with their knowledge on COVID, how serious they thought it was, about 90%, so most participants felt at least moderately knowledgeable on the topic of COVID-19. Roughly 85%, so about the same amount, said they felt the issue to be at least moderately serious, and then a 5% said they believed it to be not serious at all. When asked about what safety protocols they used, I gave them a list. So around 90% said they practiced wearing face covers, social distancing, washing hands, applying sanitizer, avoiding sick people, but roughly a quarter said they didn't avoid unnecessary travel or large social gatherings, and about half said they didn't practice daily cleaning of frequently touched surfaces, like the wheel of a car. About 90% said they covered both mouth and nose with face covers, and that was 92% of those reported using face covers. 56% said they used double, triple layer cloths. Around a quarter said surgical masks, and others said they also used N95s in some cases and face shields. So next up, I asked the participants just how much of the population around them they observed using these safety protocols was, and about 3/4 said they saw at least half of everyone around them using these precautionary measures, with the other quarter saying they saw less than half. Most participants felt moderately informed and very well informed on what precautionary measures they need to take to combat the spread of COVID-19, with about roughly 80 saying that these precautionary measures made them feel at least moderately protected. Almost everyone, when asked about what information sources they used for COVID-19, said that they sought information from the CDC, around half from their local county health organizations, and again, around half from mainstream news outlets, and I gave them an extensive list. So CNN, Fox, MSNBC were some of the ones I gave on the list. 40% said from the World Health Organization, and lastly, roughly a quarter from social medias, which I also gave them a list of. So when asked about the validity of these sources, greater than 50% said that the following sources they trusted at least very well to extremely well, that being the CDC, the WHO, and the local county health organizations. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, more than 50% said that these sources were trusted at most slightly well to not well at all, that being their social medias, and then the big mainstream news outlets such as Fox and CNN. Okay, so for COVID-19 testing, we had about 3/4 reporting that they had access to it. Roughly 42% of those said they had access from their local hospitals, clinics, primary care providers. Everyone who reported having access said they had access from their affiliated university here at Texas A&M University Central Texas. Reasonings why we didn't have 100% reporting having access to COVID-19 testing, as far as since everyone was affiliated with their university on the survey, perhaps that they were too far away from the university, perhaps they live and work from home at a distance from the university. Other places they said they had access were their place of work, VA, local pharmacies, local health outreach. Okay, so COVID-19 testing, specifically diagnostic testing, this type of testing identifies SARS-CoV-2 viral proteins, so the actual virus itself, and is typically ran through a lab. So that's what makes it usually take a little longer than just a day. 40% said they had taken a diagnostic test of the participants. 80% of those said, 80% of those who said they never had taken a test said they never suspected having COVID, but that 20% that said they did suspect it without having taken a test, I did ask them to give explanations. The common ones were it was before the tests were available, perhaps it was a misdiagnosis. They thought they had it and the doctor gave them the diagnosis, perhaps for bronchitis. Their insurance didn't cover the costs at the time, or others around them tested negative, so they didn't feel the need to have a test. So of those who had taken a diagnostic test, almost everyone had to only travel 30 miles or less. 75% said it was a nasal swab. 45% said they got the results in less than 24 hours. So there was probably some miscommunication as far as which test participants knew they were taking, whether it was the diagnostic test or the antibody test, because generally the rapid antibody tests take less than a day, and the diagnostic tests take 2 to 5 days. 10% of participants had out-of-pocket costs for the diagnostic tests. So these tests were likely taken outside of our university, since our university provides them for free. 10% said they tested positive when they took this diagnostic test. 10% of those who had taken a test, and 3/4 of those people who tested positive said they used all the recommended safety precautions before they got their positive result. The COVID-19 antibody tests, these are the tests that test for our body's innate immune response to the virus. So instead of finding the viral particles itself, we're looking for, is our body actually creating an immune response? So these generally take a little longer to start showing up post getting the virus because our body doesn't immediately start having an immune response. And they generally are a lot shorter. You get results faster, typically in less than a day in most cases. 50% of our participants had taken an antibody test, three-fourths of which three-fourths of the people who said they never took it said they never suspected having COVID. And for the same with diagnostic testing, those who said they suspected having it but yet didn't take a test, the reoccurring explanations closely resembled the diagnostic. So every participant that reported having taken an antibody test said they traveled less than 30 miles to be tested. And then roughly a quarter said they got the results in less than 24 hours, which is less than the amount of people who got the results in less than a day. Then diagnostic testing, which just further leads me to assume that there was some miscommunication as far as which test the participant has taken. But moving on, roughly a fifth of participants had out-of-pocket costs, which is 10% more than the diagnostic testing. Out of all the participants who had taken an antibody test, only one came back positive of our participants, and they reported using all the recommended safety precautions before they had the positive test. So the last thing I hit on as far as COVID-19 testing in the survey was I asked them if they had any thoughts on how COVID-19 testing access could be improved or how the testing could be improved in general. When asked, roughly three-fourths of participants said that access could be improved. And then I asked them to give a prompt answer on their opinions on how it could be improved. And then the following was a list of the more common answers I found. So providing them at lower cost, so for free, increasing the amount of testing sites, increasing how long the testing sites remained open, providing home testing kits, improving accuracy and speed of the test, since this can affect how long someone is out of their job or out of their classes, providing free transportation for those who don't have any to the testing sites, and allowing those without symptoms to be tested, since a lot of these testing sites wanted to test people who had symptoms before they tested people without symptoms due to low amounts of testing kits. And then lastly, they just want more information provided on where and how to receive one. So the very last question of the survey, I again prompted them or asked them to give a prompt answer on just any thoughts on the pandemic. And the common themes listed that I found were participants wanting more unity among the population, a stronger federal, state, and local public health response, increased mask use, testing improvements, stricter quarantine guidelines. A lot of participants wanted things to be less politicized, and a lot of participants wanted more objective information sources. All right, so what I believe the implications of the research we found that there's a lot of distrust in many information pools for COVID-19, especially with the social medias like Facebook and Twitter and the mainstream news outlets like CNN and Fox. Most participants showed at least moderate levels of confidence in their knowledge of COVID-19, belief that the pandemic is serious and poses a serious threat to the population, and then moderate levels of trust in the efficacy of the recommended safety protocols we went over earlier. Many believe that there's ample room for improvement towards COVID-19 testing. There was no correlations found between answers given and the demographics questions results from earlier in the study. And as the study was conducted on the students, faculty, and staff of Texas A&M University, Central Texas, it is likely to be more representative of people in a higher education sphere rather than just outside in the general population of Central Texas. So that's definitely something that I was paying attention to when looking at my results. So future research that I think would be beneficial, with the vaccines now being distributed in high numbers, the general population is just now starting to get theirs, while people in the healthcare field and people of old age have already received them in large numbers. perceptions are opposed to change. Back at the beginning when we were doing our survey, this was when vaccines just had started being administered. So now that infection rates should begin to increase, I'd like to research the public access to these vaccinations and the vaccination efficacy and the demographics. The infection rates should begin to decrease. So researching changes in the infection rates among various regions in Central Texas would be beneficial. And also there's many new strains that have started appearing that threaten how well these new vaccines work. So researching the Pfizer, the Moderna, the Johnson & Johnson vaccines would be beneficial. And also research the updating testing methods, like the diagnostic and the antibody tests for these new SARS-CoV-2 variants. All right, I want to thank you all for listening to my presentation, and I want to give a special thank you to TAMUCT IRB, Mr. Paul York, and Dr. Russell Porter. Thank you very much.
Jennifer Price, a graduate of the Educational Psychology program at Texas A&M University, Central Texas, an adjunct instructor at the university. Today, I am discussing research I conducted for my thesis. Thesis committee members included Dr. Cody LaPierre as chair, Dr. Andrea Schwegler, and Dr. Morgan Lewing. A popular atypical sensory response is gaining traction on social media, known as Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, or ASMR. People who experience ASMR report pleasant feelings of tingling in their heads and necks, an increase in positive mood, and relaxation. In addition to physiological changes, research reveals that experiencing ASMR can be affected by an individual's personality traits. Currently, there is limited research exploring ASMR, but the research that has been conducted is promising. Researchers have found physiological evidence documenting the effect, such as increased neural activity and decreased heart rate, while other studies have discovered personality traits that may allow some people to experience ASMR. Physiological responses and personality traits. According to research conducted by Piero and his colleagues, participants' physiological states measured in response to ASMR stimuli reported an increase in calmness and excitement and a decrease in stress and sadness. Further, ASMR participants showed significant reductions in heart rate and significant increases in skin conductance when they're compared with non-ASMR groups. The physiological evidence gathered by Piero and his colleagues supports claims that ASMR is a sensory reaction and validates the claims of people who experience it. Regarding personality traits, Fred Borg and his colleagues measured the personality characteristics of individuals who reported experiencing ASMR and compared them to individuals who did not. They found these individuals scored higher on openness to experience and neuroticism than individuals who had not experienced ASMR. Moreover, women had significantly higher scores to openness in both ASMR groups than men. Prior research reveals that behavior can be affected by an individual's personality traits. According to a widely adopted theory in personality psychology, 5 main traits comprise an individual's personality: openness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, and conscientiousness. Specifically, openness, also known as openness to experience, includes the aspects of intellect and openness, which are made up of several qualities such as fantasy, reflection, and ideas. Neuroticism includes the aspects of being withdrawn and volatile, which are comprised of more specific qualities such as being anxious, happy, and hostile. Extroversion includes being assertive and enthusiastic, with qualities such as being friendly, active, and gregarious. Conscientiousness includes the aspects of being industrious and orderly, with qualities such as being a perfectionist, competent, and cautious. Finally, agreeableness is comprised of the aspects of being compassionate and polite and includes qualities such as having empathy and being altruistic and pleasant. The research conducted by Fred Borg and his colleagues offered new insight into underlying factors that may impact experiences with ASMR. However, this research did not include real-time reports of ASMR with participants responding directly to the stimuli. Instead, the research relied on the participants' memory of their experiences with ASMR. The present research measured participants' responses in real time. The present research allowed individuals to complete a self-report ASMR measure immediately after viewing a stimulus intended to invoke an ASMR response. Similar to the research conducted by Fred Borg and his colleagues, the investigation measured the relationship between personality traits and responses. It was predicted that participants will be more likely to experience ASMR during the clips with audio than with only the video but no audio. This research was the first to explore whether the inclusion of video will alter the experience of ASMR beyond audio triggers only. Second, it was predicted that personality traits of participants who experience ASMR will differ from those of participants who do not experience ASMR, such that those who experience ASMR will score higher on neuroticism and openness to experience, consistent with prior research. Participants were recruited via email sent to all students at a university in Central Texas and by posting to social media platforms such as Reddit and Facebook. Participation was available to anyone who was over the age of 18 with normal or corrected to normal hearing and vision. The study was IRB approved. Consent to complete the study was required to access study materials, and participation was anonymous. 65 participants were recruited, and they reported a range of ethnicities, with white as the most frequently reported ethnicity. The ASMR checklist measured individuals' exposure to and use of ASMR videos. Participants rated the intensity of their reaction to different sounds, such as whispering and hair cutting, using a 7-point Likert scale from 0, no tingles, to 6, most intense ASMR experience, or unknown. Participants also indicated how frequently and why they used ASMR videos, and when they first remembered experiencing ASMR. After completing the ASMR checklist, participants verified that their headphones were working properly, that they were comfortable, and that there were no environmental distractions in the room. Then participants watched the first of 3 clips. The ASMR clips were 4-minute video and audio segments from a popular YouTube channel, Gentle Whispering ASMR. The clip included a role play with soft whispering in a hair cutting simulation. The clip was edited to create 3 segments that included audio only, video only, and audio video. Participants viewed and rated all 3 clips presented in a randomly assigned order to counterbalance the experience of ASMR. After each video, participants rated their ASMR response to the clip by answering questions from the ASMRS. The ASMRS allowed participants to self-report their physiological responses to ASMR videos. The questionnaire included statements that measured altered consciousness, sensation, relaxation, and affect that participants may feel while watching the ASMR videos. The ASMRS uses a 5-point Likert scale from 1, completely untrue for me, to 5, completely true for me. The Big 5 Inventory 2 measured personality traits. The BFI-2 included 60 questions, of which 12 items measured each of the personality characteristics of extroversion, openness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and agreeableness, using a 5-point Likert scale from 1, disagree strongly, to 5, agree strongly. Finally, participants provided basic demographic information. Participants rated common triggers regarding the intensity of the ASMR response they produced. On average, triggers were rated near the midpoint of the scale. When intensity ratings across all trigger sounds were summed, the results revealed that ASMR responses appear to be an experience of degree, not an all or none attribute. Based on this data, only 2 participants reporting having no response to any trigger sounds, while others reported a broad range of intensity ratings, ranging from 1 to 22 on a 30-point scale. When asked how pleasurable experiencing ASMR was, only 8 participants indicated they did not experience ASMR. Overall, participants reported the ASMR experience was pleasurable. 33.8% of the sample indicated they never used ASMR for relaxation. 12% responded that they used it less than once a month. 6% used it twice a month. 9% used it 2 to 3 times a month. And 32% used it 2 to 3 times weekly. 6.2% reported they used ASMR daily. When asked how frequently they used ASMR for sleep, 50% reported never, 6% said less than once a month, 1.5% reported they used it once a month, 9% 2 to 3 times monthly, 15% 2 to 3 times weekly, and 16% said they used it daily. These results suggest that though participants may perceive the ASMR response as pleasurable, they do not harness it in ways that might be beneficial to them. Pearson correlations were computed to examine the relationship between self-reported responses and reactions to the ASMR video clips. As anticipated, participants' ratings for each clip on the ASMRS were positively correlated with the intensity of the response participants initially reported experiencing. For example, participants' ratings for whispering were positively correlated with their ASMRS scores for the audio-only clip and the audio and video clip, but not the video-only clip, which did not include the whispered audio. Responses for haircutting simulation and tapping were positively related to all the haircut simulation clips used in the study. Responses to watching someone touch another person's hair were positively correlated with the ASMRS only for the video-only condition. A repeated measures ANOVA was used to test whether participants experienced different ASMR response intensity based on which video clip they were viewing. The analysis indicated that the intensity of the ASMR response was significantly stronger during the audio-video clip and the audio-only clip compared to the video-only clip. Responses to the audio-video-only clip and the audio-only clip did not differ. Regarding personality traits, Pearson correlations were conducted to examine the relationship between personality traits and ASMR response to the videos. There were no statistically significant correlations between participants' overall ASMR response scores averaged across all clip types and personality traits. However, correlations were identified between personality traits and trigger types only for conscientiousness and watching hair touching, and between open-mindedness and whispering. To analyze the predicted differences on personality traits between those who reported more intense ASMR sensations compared to those reporting weaker responses, participants were categorized into 2 groups. The low ASMR group was comprised of participants who reported having no or little response to stimuli, and their scores occupied the bottom third of the overall sample on response intensity. The high ASMR group contained the top third of participants who reported experiencing the most intense ASMR response to stimuli. The middle third of the sample was excluded from the analysis. An independent samples t-test indicated that there was a significant difference between the intensity of response to the videos for the low ASMR group and the high ASMR group. However, these groups did not differ on any personality variables. Finally, an independent samples t-test indicated that the low ASMR group rated the ASMR video clips as less realistic than participants in the high ASMR group. Discussion. The first hypothesis, that participants who experience ASMR will differ on personality traits of neuroticism and openness to experience, was not supported. Research conducted by Barrett and colleagues and Fredberg and his colleagues found that people who have higher levels of neuroticism and openness to experience were more likely to experience ASMR. However, basing predictions on Fredberg and his colleagues' study and using a similar measure of personality, the present research did not replicate their findings. There were no significant differences in personality traits between the groups of individuals who reported lower intensity responses to triggers compared to those who reported higher intensity responses. Additionally, no correlations were found between personality traits and ASMR responses when they were treated as continuous variables, and these findings were unexpected. The second hypothesis, that participants would experience a more intense response to the videos with audio than the video-only clip, was by participants in real time. The current research confirmed Barrett et al.'s findings. The second hypothesis that participants would experience a more intense response to the videos with audio than the video-only clip was supported by participants' reports of ASMR experiences in real time. The current research confirmed Barrett and colleagues' findings as participants rated their ASMR experiences immediately after viewing clips during the context of the study. These results revealed that hearing trigger sounds is an important factor for an ASMR response to occur. Based on the findings, the video-only clip may have produced a slight ASMR experience. In contrast, the audio-only clip and the audio-video clip produced significantly stronger ASMR responses, though they were weaker than expected. The results support the claim that hearing trigger sounds is necessary for an individual to experience ASMR. The findings support the results of Barrett and colleagues and Fredberg and his colleagues who found that the audio stimuli were needed to generate an ASMR response. Indeed, the audio portion of the clips may explain how frequently individuals have and how intense an ASMR response is. The results of the current study suggest that ASMR experiences may be graded responses to stimuli instead of a dichotomous one. In previous ASMR studies, researchers compared samples who reported that they could and could not experience ASMR, implying that the experience was discrete. However, given the results of the current study, participants' reports indicated that ASMR may be experienced by almost everyone to varying degrees. The results of the current study are consistent with other evidence on the ability of audio to produce physiological reactions. For example, Harrison and Louis described the discovery of frisson by Maslow in 1968. They explained that Maslow described the response as euphoric, oceanic, and even mystical, considering it a peak experience. As awareness of frisson grew, terms such as thrills and chills became widely used among individuals who experience frisson. Today, the mainstream has adopted the term ASMR to describe the experience, though there may be differences between the two responses, such as duration of the reaction. As ASMR continues to grow in popularity, researchers should consider ASMR a legitimate sensory response and examine whether these responses constitute different experiences. The failure to replicate Fredberg and his colleagues' results may have occurred because the sample size was not as robust as either Barrett and his colleagues or Fredberg's and colleagues, which may have limited the power of the test. Because Fredberg and Barrett and their colleagues noted differences in personality traits between those who do and do not experience ASMR, it is possible the current study results are not reliable and need replication. However, the results of the current study call into question whether personality traits are related to whether individuals can experience ASMR when the response is not conceptualized as a dichotomous variable and samples are not selected based on its presence or absence. Future research should seek to replicate the finding that ASMR may be a graded experience that virtually anyone can experience, which would limit its association with stable personality traits. Future research should be conducted in a laboratory context to ensure participants complete the skills as accurately as possible and to control the context for the ASMR experience. Findings from the current study indicated that the more realistic the clip was rated, the more likely an ASMR experience was to occur. As such, the experience of ASMR may be influenced by variables that were controlled in the current project, which interacted with the participants' experiences while watching the videos. Factors such as environmental distraction or size of the screen on which the videos were viewed may have impacted how realistic participants believe the videos were, which may have altered their ASMR response. Replicating the study in a lab setting would allow for researchers' control of these variables. Further, future research should measure the physiological responses of the participants in conjunction with the real-time reporting of their ASMR response. There are few studies that have utilized any physiological or biological measures to determine how intense an ASMR response is. In the current study, physiological responses although presentation of each clip was randomized to control for carryover effects. However, the use of self-report scales can be deceiving as participants may have overreported or underreported their ASMR experience. The assessment of physiological responses in conjunction with self-reports would strengthen future findings. In conclusion, as ASMR gains more popularity, gathering evidence to validate the experience will be crucial to the future applications of the response. Individuals who experience ASMR report they feel an increase in positive mood and relaxation and a decrease in anxiety. However, many individuals do not use it for these benefits. Harnessing the effects of ASMR to help people cope with stress and anxiety may provide assistance to individuals who do not seek formal treatment. Importantly, if personality is not a factor in experiencing ASMR, the sensory response could be taught to people who may not have yet realized how to create it. If this is possible, instructional materials that can teach people how to produce an ASMR response may dramatically improve their quality of life. Online video platforms such as YouTube provide an array of ASMR content, with and without video, that are accessible to almost everyone in the world at no cost. Indeed, the ability to harness ASMR has the possibility of impacting numerous people's lives as they cope with stressful situations. Thank you for attending.